there's 13 states that do not have a single CARF accredited, that's Commission on Accredited Rehabilitation Facilities, neurocognitive rehabilitation facilities. There's 13 states don't have any. The average state has 1 or 2. Some have 3. California has the second most. They have 5. Michigan has over 70. And that represents an enormous asset. Over 30% of the community-based neurocognitive rehab providers in the country are in this state because of our no-fault auto insurance. Don't ever let them get rid of no-fault auto insurance. Because if you get a brain injury from an automobile accident, which is a leading cause within the state, you're covered for life. And that is, that's huge. If you get a brain injury slipping on the sidewalk and you get the exact same brain injury, good luck getting coverage for the rehab you need. Because these treatments do work. And we spent a great deal of time together yesterday in a very long meeting. We got out of there, I think I got home at, what, 7 o'clock last night. And we were talking with some of the more than 700 certified brain injury specialists in the state of Michigan. We were talking with a number of them down at Eisenhower Center. And they have a tithe program that donates 3 months of free rehabilitation, which is about $150,000 worth of treatment, to our veterans. And you were being interviewed for that. And you've talked with some of the specialists before. And in fact, one of them is actually one of the volunteers on the anonymous call-in. Every Wednesday, the last Wednesday of every month, by the way, we have an anonymous call-in program. So veterans can call in and ask questions. They can just contact me, and our information will be displayed at the end of the TV show. But they contact me, and I give them the access code and that, because it's a very controlled, we don't want just anybody on there. And we'll give the information, they can participate. Now, you were asking some very good questions. They were asking a lot of questions of you, and you've already gone through a certain amount of rehabilitation. What do you expect? What are you looking forward to? What do you think this rehabilitation might do for you? What outcomes are you hoping for? You know, if you started today, 3 months from now, where do you want to be?
Well, something that I learned when I was in the PTSD clinic in Battle Creek, that it's impossible to put a limit, or, I mean, everybody has goals. It's like somebody being told with a spinal injury that they're never going to walk again, but we see case after case where people have fought tooth and nail, and it might take 20 years, but they're walking again. So I guess what I'm trying to say is that if it takes one time to go through these classes and participate in these programs for a brain injury or PTSD or counseling of some sort, anything that anytime that you have bettered yourself, and if it is just 0.5% or 1% more than what you were in before you went through the program, is a success story.
Sure.
So by asking me where I would like to be is impossible for me to get to, because I've been changed permanently to act different, think different, react different.
But what they're going to try to do is to retrain your brain, those components of the brain that haven't been injured, to do some of the functions you did before.
Correct.
They're also going to teach you some coping and compensation skills. We have a veteran who called me up at the end of his first semester back. This guy was hit with a massive explosion. It killed over 100 Iraqis. No Americans were killed in the blast, but it was huge, and he was outside guarding, standing guard at the front gate of a Iraqi police station, and sustained a brain injury and a lot of other injuries, just an enormous blast. And he called me up all excited that he had an A average going because he was enrolled in college, and he had a 4.0 on his first report card. And he said, "Rick, I was never a 4.0 in high school," you know. And but what he's done is they taught him, and he has learned a lot of compensation skills to help him make up. His memory is terrible, so he has to read things maybe 4 or 5 times. Mm-hmm. It's not easy like it used to be. Read it once, do your homework, move on. He may have to read it and read it and read it. He may have to tape record the sessions. He has to be active in the participation in the class, highlight everything in the book, you know, write things down, write things down, write things down. But while it's a lot more work than it used to be, he's actually getting better outcomes than he used to. And he has since gone on. He was injured the same year you were, I believe. And he's graduated from he got his 2-year degree, and he graduated from the police academy, and now he's off and working. And so there's a lot of success stories like that. And retraining the brain is something, don't underestimate what they can do. I mean, I've already seen enormous improvement over you just in the last year. And I would hope that they can get you, you know, some of the more obvious that somebody in the public might see, you know, the word retrieval and so on. But some of the invisible things, maybe your memory. You know, you do have memory issues. You have to write down a lot of notes around the house, and you have family members. You mentioned yesterday your daughter has to remind you on your medicines and so on. And another side product, talking about your daughter and the help you get from your family, is one of the things in the rehab program they want to work on is educating your family on the opportunities and how a brain injury with an individual isn't a personal problem. It affects everybody. Everybody that person has in their life is impacted by that injury. And the more patience, the more understanding, all of those things have come into play.
I think that it impacts the family a lot more than it does the individual. And it also has to do with the individual also. Speaking about the couple that we were talking about earlier, where he doesn't see that there's a big issue, mm-hmm. but his wife and his family and his friends do. So your family, your immediate family is by far affected more than the individual is on an average basis. They're affected more.
And one of the symptoms, and from what I know, you haven't run into this, but I know a lot of guys in your situation that have, and that is social norms and mores, our social value system, the things that are right and wrong that we learned from when we were kids. Mm-hmm. Post-brain injury, a lot of those guidelines are fuzzy now or gone, mm-hmm. or modified. And what is acceptable behavior and what's not acceptable in society, you know, when you're pushing your little 3-year-old through the grocery store and she tells the lady next to you, "You're fat," you know, those, whether it's that slight or it's some breaking the law. Mm-hmm. We have veterans, incarceration issues going on in the country because veterans are coming home and they're still in their mind in the combat environment. When we were on I went on a pheasant hunt with my son, and his whole squad came on this pheasant hunt. They had just gotten back from Mosul, Iraq, did over 200 combat patrols. The average guy and gal in the company had encountered between 12 and 15 IEDs. I mean, they were getting hammered. Luckily, they didn't lose anybody. They had some amputees and some, you know, a number of Purple Hearts, but we're out pheasant hunting and we're going on a European tower shoot from tower to tower, and I'm listening. I'm not shooting. I'm just listening to the troops talk, and my son says, do you find yourself scanning the rooftops and everything when you're driving? And I thought, I'm sitting there thinking that's normal after going through what they go through on patrol every day. And the guy says, he says, that's nothing. I was downtown Detroit, and when the traffic backed up in front of him, he literally jumped the median and went the wrong way in a one-way street for like 50 yards before it clicked on him. I'm not in Iraq. I mean, he just instinctively, after that intense, you don't get stopped, you get ambushed. And after that intense reinforcement, you know, and every one of them had a little story to share of something like that. And one of the things we do within the Brain Injury Association, we talked about the Faith-Based Veterans Task Force, we talk about our recreational therapy, our involvement with the Accessibility Advisory Council for the state. But there's two other things we work with, and that is the veteran court system and the police veteran intervention program. These are the two different programs working on the criminal justice side of the house, in that the veteran court system, we're an advisor to it. It's off and running, and hopefully within the state of Michigan we'll have all the counties up and running. They're copying a Buffalo, New York veteran court system, and it is not letting these guys off. I don't know if you've had a chance to talk to any of the guys. Actually, the criteria is set tighter for a veteran. Once it's established they're a veteran, they go into the veteran court system. Instead of just letting the guy go on probation or whatever the judge is going to do, they mandate that you will, as a condition of whatever the sentencing is, have to go through PTSD training, have to go to neurocognitive rehabilitation, have to go through the VA system to get care and get treated. And the recidivism rate of those veterans is like 2%. Very, very few of these troops get in trouble again. The success story blows away anything in the civilian world. So the judge, this alternative sentencing, instead of just throwing a guy in jail and not getting him the rehabilitation he needs, that's going to compound it, especially with the brain injury where the symptoms start to set and they get harder to help the more time they wait. So we're an advisor in that capacity. And then the veteran, the police veteran intervention program is one where we go to the state police and the sheriffs and the East Lansing Police Department and around the state, and we educate police officers and the administrators about the issues the veterans are facing, the invisible wounds and so on. And it's important for a number of reasons. When a police officer approaches a veteran who they pulled over for road rage, or if they run into him at a bar, and alcohol is legal, it's socially acceptable, and unfortunately it's a coping mechanism rather than facing the reality and getting the help. A number of our vets turn to alcohol. And so they walk into a bar environment and they got a veteran getting in trouble or getting rowdy or whatever. And the police officer, it's good for him to know that guy's a veteran. First of all, he may have some very serious combat experience, which could put the enforcement officer at jeopardy. Public safety and all that kind of stuff comes into play. But the other thing is to understand that this individual may be flashing back. There's a lot of incidences of that. We had a suicide by cop last year in Livingston County. The veteran just didn't give the police officer any option. We had another incident just before that where a veteran was shot by a police officer because he was trying to neutralize an enemy threat. In his mind, he was dealing with Al-Qaeda or an insurgent, and he was trying to take the pistol away from the police officer, and he had totally flashed back to Iraq. And so we're working and helping educate the police officer, the whole criminal justice system. We're working with the court system. We're working with the faith-based community. We're working with the disability community, and we're working with the veterans with this recreational rehab. And so we have an enormous outreach opportunity. And you've been with us. you've been through a number of our events, and you've attended the brain injury conference, the largest one in the country that goes on, and you and your wife both attended that. And what is your overall thought on that?
That's that conference is a spectacular thing to have and try to coax people of all walks of life to come. And even though, and I have even tried to speak to people that haven't yet come in contact with a person with brain injury. It's no different than what you were just explaining about trying to teach, or not teach, but inform our justice system how to deal with combatants.
Mm-hmm.
It's just another way of looking at things. Person walking down the street that's never really had any contact with a person with a brain injury comes across somebody that's something's wrong on the edge of the road. If they're aware of some possibilities, it's just going to make it easier for one person to help another person. But people want to help. People want to have to be open to suggestions and new information. A brain injury isn't it is a psychological problem, but a brain injury, a person has to, our society has to stop thinking about a brain injury patient and looking at them as that they have a disease. Mm-hmm. More so than we as society don't have a problem with a person breaking their arm, going to the emergency room, getting it set, getting a cast on, and then having people see them for the next 6 weeks with a cast on. Oh, you broke your arm? Oh, how'd you do that? It's no different with a brain injury. A brain injury is a physical thing. It's not a psychological thing. And even if it was totally a psychological thing, we as our society needs to start dealing with those issues as mainstream issues and not taboo issues, is what I'm trying to say.
Well, you're right on, and that's an excellent lead in to the next area, and that is explaining what brain injury is. It is a physical injury. It's a physical assault to our microprocessor up here, and you drop your computer. The first thing you do is you turn it on to make sure it's working, right? And you're kind of keeping your fingers crossed. It is a physical injury, and post-traumatic stress disorder is a normal response to an abnormal situation. It's a psychological response to a stressor-induced activity that is so significant and just etches the memory of the brain. And when you go through your training program, which was almost 10 weeks long in total, they're working hard to try to train you to watch for these things as they start to bubble up, and they educate you on what to do and how to handle it, and and so that it doesn't really go away, but you learn to control it and so on. Where a traumatic brain injury is a physical assault to the brain. Recent research out of UCLA even showed that they can train, you hear right side, left side, oh, he's really artistic, he's really analytical, engineering type, he's whatever. And they can actually train the opposite side of the brain to do something it was never in our minds thought to do. So do everything you can to prevent brain injury. No brain injury is too mild to ignore or too severe to lose hope. That's one of the sayings we have around the office, and that hope component with the family is critical as well as the education. And If you go to the Brain Injury Association of Michigan, BIAMI, BIA for Brain Injury Association, MI for Michigan, .org website, we have all kinds of information and education opportunities, and it's really intended not only for the brain injury survivor, but for the family member to educate themselves. And I got a wife of a veteran that told me a cute story. She gets it. She understands. You don't want to necessarily, this is, if you're working with a young child, there's times you want to help them do it, and there's times you want them to do it themselves. And with a brain injury and you're trying to train somebody to come back, how to tie your shoes and all these things, you get to that point. And she says her husband loved coffee, but he would get there, he would stand in front of the coffee pot, he knew he wanted coffee, but he literally, what's called sequencing, the sequence of opening the cabinet door, getting a coffee cup, closing the door, getting the pot, pouring the coffee, getting the sugar, taking the spoon, every one of those steps that we don't even think about. We just do while we're talking on the phone and whatever. And she developed a technique where, and he was improving with time, but instead of saying, put the sugar in your coffee or put the cream in your coffee, she would drop little hints to him. Honey, if you're looking for the sugar, I put it back in the cabinet right in front of you. Kind of nice ways. Honey, if you're looking for the cream, kind of as a reminder, because he's standing there looking at his cup thinking, I know I'm supposed to do something else, I can't remember, dropping a hint. Honey, if you're looking for the cream, I put it back in the fridge. So all of those types of things come into play. And Dan, it's really been a pleasure having you here and helping share your story. I know it's difficult. I know it's good for you. You've indicated that with many of the interviews, so I appreciate your service to our nation and your sacrifice. And you're an enormously lucky man from the standpoint, I know you're dealing with survivor guilt and why did you make it out when others didn't and all the rest of these things, but the reality is you've taken on this mission of helping other soldiers. You understand it's helping you at the same time, but you helping share your story is helping others. And I know we really appreciate you, everything you've done.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity.
No problem at all. So I'm Rick Briggs, Brain Injury Association of Michigan Veteran Program Manager. And if we can ever do anything to help you, if you have any questions, whether they're civilian or DOD military related, please give us a call. Brain Injury Association of Michigan is BIAMI.org. Our office number is 810-229-5880. That's 810-229-5880. And for those of you that would like to help a veteran and sponsor a veteran at any of these activities, they're not free to put on, but they're free for our veterans, and we appreciate all the sponsors that can support that. And if you have a little prize you'd like to donate to the prize pool, or a free fishing trip, or you'd like to take a vet out hunting or something, please feel free to contact me. Thank you for joining us.